Hello. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. My name is Ajuna Kyaruzi. I'm here to talk about the big one, basically the March 8th incident that Datadog had earlier this year. So I want to start off by asking who heard of said incident. Okay, there's a good amount of the people in the room, maybe a little over half. Anyone who's currently using Datadog and was affected by the incident? Okay, couple more hands. Anyone who's already read the incident review that we posted? Okay, even less, which means I can tell you stuff that you didn't know. Awesome. So I call this talk the big one in reference to this anticipated event in the San Andreas Fault in California. Essentially, they did a study really early in 2006 and realized that that fault is under immense amounts of pressure, and that they expect at some point in the next couple decades there will be a very large earthquake affected by that fault, and invite people to prepare themselves and make sure that they're ready for said earthquake to happen. And they call this thing the big one, which sounds very mythological, and I kind of appreciate that. I also obviously hope that it doesn't happen, but we also hope is not a strategy, is what I've heard, so you have to at least prepare. And I think that the concept translates really well to SRE. I like also thinking about incident management in human life and in computer life. There's a lot of parallels. And I think most companies have an understanding that at some point, computers are not infallible, humans are not infallible. We will have an incident at some point, and this is Datadog's version of that. So if you haven't heard of Datadog, and to give you a background into how we're organized, to give you an understanding of why the incident affected us the way that it did, Datadog is an observability and security platform that has a large suite of products among logs, traces, metrics. We have observability pipelines, CI visibility, some AI we're pulling in as well these days. But the interesting thing about how all of this is organized, it's under one, it's all organized in one platform, and we want you to be able to see your individual systems under one single pane of glass. The way that we organize this internally is that we run dedicated, completely separate servers. All our infrastructure is run separately in different regions across the world. So there is not any shared infrastructure between our different regions. All of this is run so that if one region goes down, because people rely on us for observability, not all of them go down. What was very interesting for us is that this particular incident hit all of our regions all at the same time at 6 a.m. 6 UTC. So that was very confusing because we did not anticipate that we would have something happen like that. All of our releases are individualized and go through one region at a time, so we knew that we couldn't have had a code change that happened because it would have affected one region first. Then maybe we would be able to catch it and stop it before it became a cascading failure, but everything went down all at once. So this is the beginning timeline. Like I said, at 6 a.m. UTC, the trigger happened, which was an upgrade, and I'll go into a little bit more details about that. We do have out-of-band monitoring to know when Datadog is down, because if we do monitor Datadog on Datadog, so we are responsible enough to have out-of-band monitoring to make sure that we can tell when things aren't happening. Internally, we also have a you build it, you run it mentality. So the team that runs all of our observability internally is the one that caught it, because they handle our out-of-band monitoring as well. And so they declared an incident. We do have the organizational structure that, depending on the severity of the incident, we have a core team of incident commanders that are well-trained, that come in and help run the incident at a much higher severity. So they pull in a lot of different resources from communications, executive liaisons, and so forth. So immediately, one of our incident commanders came in about at the 6:23 mark. And then our executive on call also joined, and half an hour in, we were already able to get the status update up. Usually, a lot of this works faster, but because Datadog runs on Datadog, some of this did take a little bit slower than we wanted. But it was also very impressive to me. I'm not on the SRE team, that we were able to all, within half an hour, notice that the global outage is happening and get the status page up. And additional responders, by the 6:40 mark, we had over 50 people already in a Slack channel coming in to start triaging the incident. So a little bit about the trigger. So a lot of this is networking and Kubernetes related. That is not my area of expertise. I will explain as much as I can, but we'll also point you to some of our resources where you can go look at the details up to IP tables to understand it. I have some context and we'll share what I know so far. So in our Kubernetes setup, we have a base operating system that is Ubuntu that runs in all of our nodes. There was a systemd update that was an unattended update that happened. The issue that why it happened everywhere at 6 a.m. UTC was it was a security update that we did not anticipate would happen, and the way that we roll our updates in a very different manner, but we didn't know that these security updates could happen in this way, and they were also not configured to happen at local time. They were all configured to happen between 6 and 7 a.m. UTC, which is why it impacted all of our regions at the same time, because we use a very similar base OS in all of our Kubernetes nodes. So this update caused our nodes to restart and to delete all of their network tables. So we use Cilium to manage our container network interface. So all of our nodes were unable to communicate at the same time. And that's what happened and made everything go down all at once, everywhere. What was very interesting to me was the process of instant response that we had. Basically, as soon as we found out what was going on, a lot of people came in and wanted to help out as well as they can. We do run incident management training for all of our engineers. Because we have this you build it, you run it system, all of our engineers are on call at some point for their own servers and their own systems. So all of them had the training. So by the time it was known that the incident was going on, we did page a lot of different teams because we didn't know the scale of the incident because our observability was limited. So different teams were paged to come in, and all of them, having already had the training, were able to come and self-organize and plan themselves to figure out what is the impact for each individual team and how can they start the mitigation process. Though it did take us a while to find this trigger because we didn't understand what would cause all of our nodes to be impacted all at once. So usually, as a lot of organizations do, we have the instant command system where you do have an instant commander and you have folks that work with them, such as the different responders, a lead for the executive or a liaison for those, customer liaison, and then also a communications lead. But the scale of this incident, we had over 500 responders throughout the 48 hours where people were rotating in and rotating out. We did have to separate this out to have different things that we call work streams, which are basically sub-incidents with sub-instant commanders in their own kind of incident Slack channels and Zoom calls, all coordinating themselves with their own responders, all reporting up into our global instant commander, who was also rotating out because humans don't stay up for 48 hours and still be very, very helpful. We were also dogfooding a new product that we have now announced, which is the Workstreams product that does let you, when you're in our incident app, we use our own incident management system. It helps you separate into these work streams automatically so that they all link up together and you can get shared information from each work stream and kind of push them up to the main incident, which was very helpful. We were in the process of creating that and ended up using it at a pretty good scale, which I was happy about. So a little bit more about the timeline if folks are curious. We were able to get a working mitigation by 8:30 UTC for EU1. We decided to focus on EU1 because we had 5 regions that went down. 4 of them were in the US, One of them was in Europe, and obviously this is when Europe is waking up because they are on the UTC time zone. So we decided to start there to see if we could get those nodes recovering, and we identified something by 8:30, but it was until around noon UTC when the compute capacity actually started recovering. It took many hours later to actually get that capacity recovered in US1, but we started rolling out mitigations to prevent a repeat failure. Something we did find out very early is that the failure wasn't continuing to happen. So it wasn't like a cascading failure that if we fix something, it was going to break again. This was very much a one-time thing. And some of our nodes, when being restarted, were able to kind of pick up from where they left off. But not everything was able to do that. Our infrastructure fully restored by 7 p.m. UTC. However, it took a long time for us to backfill all of the missing data and all of the things that weren't working at the beginning. So ingesting all of the data that we had took another 24 hours, if I remember correctly. The challenges for these were very interesting. One of our biggest challenges was that we did not have the same reaction for in each of our different regions. We are multi-cloud, and each of these different regions runs on different clouds, which is another reason why we were so surprised. Basically, on AWS, we did have it that our nodes auto-scaled, so when it realized that there was a problem with the network connectivity, the nodes were replaced. So they were deleted and new nodes came up, which was helpful at some point, but we got to the place where when we were trying to recover the data, we rely a lot on local disk. Recovery took a much longer time on AWS because of that reason. Whereas on GCP and Azure, they recognized that the networking was down, but the nodes weren't deleted. So while it took a while for us to restore those to be in the right networking state, restarting them was able to make that a lot easier for us, and getting that data was not as big of a problem as it was in AWS. Other challenges that we had were the fact that we had never had this level of outage where it impacted all of our different systems all at the same time across multiple regions. So just trying to choose what we should work on first and what was the most important did take a while to prioritize. Obviously, I said that we prioritized EU1, but it was still like once we had compute capacity back up, what is the most important thing for our users? We decided that it should be live data. People needed to know what was going on right now. So we focused on live data, got that back up, and then focused on backfilling for historical data. But the definition of live data is different for each of our different products. So live data could be the last 15 minutes for some products. The other ones could be the last hour. So it did take a long time because each of our products work differently. Similarly, because of our different products, we had a hard time communicating with external users about the status of each individual product with the way that our status page was set up. We could tell you that we were down and we were in the process of fixing things, but going into details of like, this is how our incident management product is impacted, and this is how APM is impacted, and how kind of all of the things cascade together depending on how much that you use, was definitely something that we found challenging. Due to that, obviously we have a lot of folks who are customer facing, and the amount of tickets that we got during this period was very high. So also communicating internally with all of our customer facing folks to let them know, hey, this is what's going on, and this is the information you can give to your individual customer who has this suite of products, and how they can handle that mitigation, was something that we were working on as we were trying to fix the system, which obviously added a lot of complexity to that. There are a lot of lessons that are generally learned by the organization, and lessons that I learned individually as being part of this. I was still within my first 2 years of Datadog, so I'd never seen us have a global outage because it was, I think it is one of our firsts. But the human reaction to this, both internally and externally, was amazing. Everyone was able to kind of know what they needed to do, because we had a lot of folks who had the training to drive to know that, okay, there's an incident, let me go find out whether my team is impacted and how I can help. And that's why we were able to have over 500 responders kind of passing the pager around over the 48 hours to get everyone moving. It was also overwhelmingly blameless internally as we were going through the incident management process and the postmortem process, and we have dozens of internal postmortems. Each team wrote their own. These were all consolidated into one at some point, and then we tried to publish that externally and realized that to tell the whole story, we needed to do it in 4 parts. So there is a 4-part incident details on our page, and I'll kind of point you to that at the end. All of this was very much focused on what happened rather than thinking about the humans involved who, like I said, were all really, really cool. So the morale internally while we were dealing with this very important system being down was still overwhelmingly positive, where everyone was helping each other. So I really appreciated that. Other lessons learned were how to do some of the things that I told you that we struggled with a little bit. So the customer communication was an area that we realized we needed to get better at. So we have started making sure that we know what we need to do when we have these global level outages. How do we communicate with all of our customer support folks, technical account managers, account executives, so that they can keep customers up to date for individual products, and also what a degraded mode looks like for each of our products and what mitigations you can take to keep moving forward. The last part is also that we are in the process of also updating our status page so that it can tell you for each of our products how different things work. So you can know, okay, APM is now fine, but we might still need some work to get our CI visibility back up, or however ones of those that you use. I knew that all people who use Datadog were all infrastructure folks and all engineers, but also seeing the reaction on Twitter where folks were definitely understanding the pain of everyone internally, because they're all of our folks who use us are mostly engineers, and getting hug ups externally was also awesome. And also people who were also very curious what was going on. They knew that for this level of outage impacting an observability company, we had the data to also tell you about what was going on. It just needed to get it in a way that we could explain the full story. So this is a screenshot from our website kind of showing you the different parts of our incident report that we have been able to come out. So there's a top level report if you just want to know the impact, the chronology, the response. But if you want to know the core details, we have a deep dive into the impact that impacted our platform, into what our incident response folks were doing, and then into what it took to get us recovered from that. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Void community and other learning from incidents communities. I spoke here last year and I talked about learning from incidents and from my first incident, and it feels a little full circle to come back this year and talk about another incident. And generally I love learning from incidents. I learn new things every time. I talked about that last year, but if you're curious to learn more about different incidents impacting a lot of different companies, there are over 10,000 on this open database where folks, when they have a public incident report, they update it, and the Datadog ones are on here as well. But I spent some time here. I know a few folks from this community, and I think that the work that they do, taking time to really learn as many lessons as they can from different incidents is really, really cool. So I'm going to stop there and open myself up to questions, but thank you so much for your time. You can reach out to me. I'd love to continue staying in touch if you need more details. Want me to send you the links? Happy to keep chatting. Thank you.
There we go. Oh, brilliant talk. Thank you. Obviously, preamble, I haven't done my homework, so I haven't read the incident report, but it was interesting to hear from you. But I've got 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First is, so what is the SLA that Datadog has with the customers? So what happens when the SLO is breached? Does the bill for that duration get waived, or?
So we have different SLAs for different products, and I don't know what the billing process looked like after this incident. We didn't go into the details because it's individual for each customer. do know that we did work with our customers to make sure that they were happy with us. Incidents like this do cause a lot of reputation damage, and we are aware of that. But at the end of the day, our customers did know that we were working on it, and we were able to get back up as fast as we could. So I don't have a number in front of me to know exactly how much money was impacted, but we did definitely compensate for the time that we were unavailable.
Cool, thank you. And last but not the second question is, so after the incident, have you decided to move over from using Datadog to monitor Datadog? Or are you still sort of using Datadog to monitor Datadog?
We always had out-of-band monitoring, and definitely we are working on making that more robust to know from like a product-to-product impact. There are a few things that we're able to see. Like when you log into Datadog, even as a Datadog employee, you can tell that it's down. But how much can you tell that each of our products is down? So we're working on getting better at that. We will continue dog fooding, so we will always have Datadog running on Datadog. But we have maintained staying responsible enough to know that we need as much monitoring as we are able to have outside of that to know when outages happen.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. We got one here a few rows down.
Thank you. I'm just more curious. It's not really a question. I was curious about how this kind of update reached production without going to like development stages before.
So it hit all of our clusters, including our staging ones, all at the same time. So let me figure out how to best describe this. There was an unattended updates channel for security updates that impacted all of our kind of node operating system. So essentially, this is not what we use to update our nodes anyway, which we would have had that cascading where we'll do staging first, catch it, then continue. So we had recently updated our node OS in early I think mid 2022 to this current version. So we were in the process of sort of updating that, but over 90% had the same operating system, where we hadn't caught that it had that security kind of legacy update right at the bottom of it. And we pushed changes daily, and some of these things happen daily, but we had never had a problem at this scale. So we just, in the 10 years we've been running Ubuntu on our nodes, it just had never happened before. Yeah.
So it was because it was a security fix.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think those level of fixes only happen like every 6 months. And so between when we had last updated to this, it had never impacted us to notice that it causes a restart. And then also just the way that the restart happened this time around, the systemd network deleted the Cilium tables, where usually when we have our nodes restart, systemd starts up much earlier before the Cilium comes in. So you would never catch this unless you already had a running node that was restarted and then deleted the Cilium tables. So it was very, very specific that all of our testing and chaos engineering had never been in this state where you had a running node that all of a sudden restarted and then didn't have connectivity. So it was fun. I'll take the last question. And then I'll be here all day. I'm happy to chat more about it. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the talk, by the way. I have a bit of a silly question, if I may.
Sure.
Obviously, didn't read the incident report, so maybe it's covered. But were there no known backups at the time when the incident happened?
I'm sorry?
Did you not have any backups at the time when the incident happened?
Backups of what?
Of the working OS version, working container image, whatever you used to deploy the applications.
So if everything goes down, we weren't able to recover fast enough for like new nodes to be created to take over, and then we ran out of compute essentially. So even if we were trying to spin up new nodes and kind of recover compute, even in the process of recovery, we had to reach out to each of our cloud providers and ask for higher what's it called, higher bandwidths because we kept getting rate limited as well. So basically, if you have to restart tens of thousands of servers all at once, nodes all at once, you kind of run into that problem. So the recovery took a much longer time because of that. Even with some of our internal systems, we had put basically different, I don't know if I want to call them roadblocks, but basically waits in between to make sure that we aren't having this problem. So there was one system which took 33 hours to recover because we had said that, okay, once you recover this node, this set of node, wait 10 minutes, then do the next one. And then, so we couldn't overwrite that immediately. So there was some scripting going on to overwrite all of the overrides that guardrails would put in place. I really recommend for folks to go read the recovery report that we have, because I am not doing it justice as someone who's not into network and compute. As much I shared the context that I could, but I hope that you can go in if you really want to see the details of why certain systems took much longer. It is very, very interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.